One seemingly ordinary day, I stumbled upon a shocking secret that would change my life forever. At first, I couldn't believe it. My heart raced as I tried to process the betrayal, but as the pieces of the puzzle fell into place, the picture became clearer and much darker than I could have ever imagined. I stepped outside, holding a leash, ready to take my dog for a walk and enjoy a short run. As I observed my neighbors starting their cars and heading to work, I let out a deep sigh. I had no office or workplace to rush to anymore. After my business went bankrupt, I was left with a huge pile of debt and stuck at home, trying to revive what was once a thriving venture. The weight of these setbacks left me feeling lost in a world that continued moving forward without me. I noticed my neighbor Mike walking over from his well-maintained driveway. Mike ran a successful car import business and often had different luxury cars parked outside his house. Today was no exception, and Mike walked confidently with a big grin. He greeted me cheerfully, almost too cheerfully. I responded with a forced smile, noticing his grin seemed to grow wider. I remarked on another day of relaxation for him. Though his comment stung, I calmly mentioned that every day brings its own challenges. Mike just chuckled and said he had cars to import, then strolled away. I watched him go, reminding myself not to let his insensitive remarks affect me. I knew some people couldn't resist the urge to gloat. Returning home used to bring me great comfort, but now it felt like stepping into a storm. Not because of the walls or the furniture, but because of someone who lived there, my wife, Emily. Emily, who worked as an insurance agent, had grown distant and cold since my financial troubles began. The difference was stark. Gone were the days when she would excitedly call me to come home early for a romantic dinner or snuggle on the couch for a movie. Our conversations, once warm and affectionate, had become brief and mechanical. The home that had once been a sanctuary of love now felt like a reminder of what we had lost. I attempted to bridge the growing gap between us by mentioning the times when Emily used to check on me during the day. Emily responded curtly without looking up from her papers, indicating that things change. One evening after returning from work, I gathered the courage to approach Emily, driven by my longing to rekindle the closeness we had once shared. I softly brought up our first anniversary, recalling the candlelight dinner on the terrace and our dance under the stars. Emily looked up from her laptop with an unreadable expression and inquired about the purpose of my remarks. I confessed, saying, I miss us. I miss how things used to be. She audibly sighed, closed her laptop, and explained that she did not have time for this at the moment as she was swamped with work. She emphasized that being at home did not grant her the luxury to sit around and reminisce. I felt a sharp sense of rejection and expressed my desire to spend time together as we used to. Emily's eyes hardened as she mentioned that times had changed, highlighting her responsibilities while I pursued my activities. She indicated that she did not have time for sweet talk and suggested that we could discuss things when she was not buried with work. I nodded, feeling the weight of the distance between us. "All right, Emily, whenever you are ready." As I walked away, the cold silence of our home felt more pronounced than ever. While walking through the park with my dog, a newfound optimism began to well up within me. Despite the failure of my business, I realized it was just one obstacle in the grand scheme of life. I whispered to myself, patting my dog, "It is just another challenge. I can and will rise again." Upon returning home from the dog walk, I noticed Emily at the dressing table, gracefully applying lipstick and makeup. Her reflection caught my eyes, evoking memories of the early days of our love. I approached her with a gentle smile and complimented her beauty. Emily didn't even glance at me. She continued applying her makeup. A moment later, when she was finished, she looked at her own reflection and smiled, remarking, "I am beautiful." In an effort to bridge the gap between us, I casually inquired about her work schedule for the evening. She paused, eyeing me curiously. "Around 7, I think?" "Why?" I winked and replied, "Oh, no reason. Just thought I'd ask." In my heart, I planned a surprise. Tonight, I would prepare a home-cooked dinner, complete with her favorite wine. It was a small gesture, but perhaps it could mark the beginning of healing our bond and regaining her attention. After all, mending our relationship might just be the motivation I needed to rebuild my career. I spent the day refreshing our home with upbeat music playing in the background. I wanted the atmosphere to radiate warmth and welcome for Emily's return. With every clean surface, washed dish, and emptied trash, I felt a small sense of accomplishment. After making our home shine, I headed to the grocery store to gather ingredients for the evening's dinner. As an afterthought, I decided to visit the wine store to get Emily's favorite wine. Upon entering, the familiar doorbell chime greeted me, and Lisa, the saleswoman, recognized me with excitement. Lisa greeted me, saying it had been a while and asking how I had been. I gave a half smile and replied that I had had better days but was getting by. I inquired if they had a bottle of the Raz wine. Lisa playfully raised her eyebrows and teased about planning a romantic evening at home. I chuckled, attempting to sound nonchalant, and confirmed that it was something like that. Lisa mentioned that Emily had been there about an hour ago and had picked up a bottle of the same wine. Realizing she might have said too much, Lisa stammered, suggesting that maybe Emily was planning her own surprise. Clearing her throat, she efficiently wrapped the bottle for me, hoping to change the subject. As I headed home, my hopeful mood was replaced by a swirl of thoughts. I contemplated the possibilities. Could Emily also be preparing a surprise for me? But why would she buy the wine in the afternoon? I gripped the steering wheel, a mix of anticipation and anxiety taking hold. I decided not to jump to conclusions. One thing was certain: I would find out soon. Pulling into my driveway, I took a deep breath to calm my racing thoughts and set to work. The aroma of the dinner I had prepared filled the house, offering a temporary distraction from my swirling thoughts. I glanced at the clock. Emily was usually punctual. Maybe her work held her up. I tried to reassure myself, but a nagging feeling lingered. Sitting in our dimly lit dining room, the table set for two, I occasionally checked my phone, hoping for a call or a message from Emily. The house remained quiet except for the soft ticking of the wall clock. Each passing moment heightened the mystery of Emily's plans. Finally, around 8:30, my phone rang, and I recognized Emily's ringtone. I answered quickly. "Hey, Emily!" Her voice came through, rushed and slightly breathless. "Hey, babe, where are you?" I asked, masking my concern. "I am so sorry, Ryan," she replied hurriedly. "An unexpected business trip came up and I couldn't turn it down. My boss insisted." I tried to digest the news. "Oh, okay, but can't you leave in the morning or something? I'm actually already on my way there." She sighed and added, "It is a significant opportunity. It could open some doors for me." I took a deep breath. I wanted to be understanding, especially considering my recent setbacks. "I understand. I wish you had told me sooner, though." I know," Emily replied, the rush in her voice evident. "Everything happened so fast. I really have to go, Ryan." I looked at the beautifully set table and the dinner I had prepared. "All right, take care, Emily. Call me when you can." Emily's voice softened. "Okay, I will. I will be back soon. Bye. And by the way, I don't know how long it's going to last. Maybe like 2 weeks or so." As the call ended, I sank into a chair, my shoulders slumping under the weight of the evening's turn of events. I struggled to piece together the puzzle of my thoughts. The unexpected business trip seemed plausible, but the earlier wine purchase kept bothering me. Maybe she simply wanted to unwind during her trip and didn't mention it. I tried to rationalize, attempting to push aside the cloud of doubt forming in my mind. I took a deep breath, urging myself to focus on the present. Right in front of me was a delicious meal, and I was reluctant to let it go to waste. With renewed determination, I dug into the dinner, hoping to find some solace in the effort I had put into making our home warm and welcoming again. I served myself some food and made my way to the living room. The soft glow of the TV filled the room as I turned it on, and the familiar sounds of a game in progress greeted me. I decided to immerse myself in it, temporarily pushing aside my concerns. Sometimes a little distraction was all I needed to find clarity. I relaxed on the couch, thoroughly enjoying the game's excitement. An occasional chuckle escaped my lips, indicating my genuine amusement. When my glass ran dry, I strolled to the kitchen for a refill. The evening's anxieties began to fade, replaced by a warmer, lighter feeling. As I passed the study, an unexpected light caught my eye. The computer screen was illuminated, something that typically happened when notifications came in or if it was disturbed. Curiosity got the better of me, and I stepped into the study, switching on the overhead light. I mused to myself that maybe someone had left the computer on after having too many drinks. Just as I was about to leave, another noise from the computer halted me in my tracks. A small pop-up in the screen's lower corner grabbed my attention, displaying the message, "Photos successfully synced." With raised eyebrows, I approached the computer and clicked on the notification. The screen showed the loading icon for a moment before revealing a list of files, all time-stamped from just hours ago. Tentatively, I opened one of the files, and the image started loading from top to bottom, gradually revealing a familiar face. As the image continued to load, Emily's smiling face appeared, and her surroundings became clearer. By the time the image fully rendered, my heart sank. There she was, my wife, playfully taking a selfie while sitting on her boss's lap. The realization weighed heavily on me, and I slumped into a nearby chair, holding my head in my hands. All the doubts and suspicions that I had pushed aside came rushing back, now confirmed by the undeniable truth on the screen. The room seemed to close in on me as I stared at the image. The playful glint in Emily's eyes, the familiarity with which she leaned into her boss, it all painted a story that I did not want to believe. The wine I had consumed churned uneasily in my stomach. I returned to the list of files, clicking on another one. A sequence of photos revealed Emily and her boss at a fancy bar. In some pictures, they were laughing and toasting with their glasses. In others, they were engaged in deep conversation, their faces close together. With each image, the reality of the situation became more evident. The evening's attempts to rekindle our relationship, the dinner I had prepared with care, it all seemed to taunt me now. A confusing mix of anger, pain, and betrayal flooded me. Most of all, I felt an overpowering sense of loss. I got up and returned to the living room, no longer interested in the wine I held. I was now looking for something stronger. With a light drizzle outside, I put on my coat and headed out. Slowly, I made my way to the liquor store. As I walked, my heart ached with pain, and I could feel myself shattering into numerous pieces. Memories of the joyful times I shared with Emily replayed in my mind, but now they were tinged with sadness. The question why echoed repeatedly. Why did Emily grow distant? Was it because I had failed as a provider? I remembered the times when my business was thriving, when we both had big dreams. I had once enthusiastically promised Emily the latest Mercedes, a symbol of success and luxury, but I never followed through on that promise. Could that unkept promise be part of why she distanced herself, or was it something more? It was hard to pinpoint one reason. Perhaps it was a combination of many small things, overlooked moments, and unspoken emotions. All I knew for certain was that our relationship had changed, leaving me with a profound sense of loss and confusion. I entered the store, rainwater dripping from my face and soaking my coat. Lisa, upon recognizing me, noticed the fading smile on my face and paused for a moment, searching for the right words. "Hey, Ryan," she began gently. "Having a tough day?" My voice was low, almost a whisper. "Whiskey, please." Lisa, perceptive as always, sensed that something was amiss. "Are you sure about that? You know, if you need someone to talk to—" I simply shook my head, interrupting her. "Just the whiskey, thanks." I took the bottle, offered a brief, weary smile, and left the store. I did not wait until I got home to open the whiskey. After a few swallows, the world began to spin. The drink heightened my emotions, breaking down my usual defenses. Stumbling a bit, I began speaking louder to strangers passing by. "Hey there," I slurred, pointing at no one in particular. "Do you know my wife? She is off somewhere having the time of her life with her boss, and here I am, celebrating." I laughed bitterly, my words dripping with sarcasm. "Yep, a one-man party, that's me." As time passed, my speech became increasingly incoherent. I began to sing fragments of a song that had played in my home earlier, the same song meant to accompany a romantic dinner for two. My voice wavered, sometimes staying on key, other times going entirely off tune. The sadness in my rendition was palpable, the melody mirroring my broken heart. Stumbling along the sidewalk, I realized I had lost my whiskey bottle. Thinking I had finished it, I decided to return to the store for another. As I swayed and muttered to myself, I reached into my pocket for money, but it was nowhere to be found. It was then that I noticed an older man nearby, watching me with a mix of concern and curiosity. I raised my voice, and my words slurred together as I confronted the old man, asking if he had something to say. The elderly man, wearing glasses and carrying a worn-out backpack, appeared surprised by my aggression at first. However, my tone quickly shifted from confrontational to desperate. I apologized to him, my voice breaking, and explained that I really needed a drink right now. I asked if he could spare some money. The old man sighed and reached into his pockets, pulling out a few crumpled dollar bills from his shirt pocket. He told me it was all he had and extended the money to me. Still unsteady on my feet, I accepted the money and mumbled my thanks. Then I suggested that he join me for a drink, but the old man gently declined, expressing concern that I had already had enough. I was about to respond defiantly when my stomach turned and I vomited onto the pavement. The mist had soaked everything around, and the cold was settling in. Wet and disoriented, I leaned against a brick wall with my eyes closed, trying to catch my breath. The old man observed me with a furrowed brow, expressing worry. He prodded gently, asking if I lived nearby. In my hardly coherent state, I simply murmured that I wanted to sleep. Surveying the nearly deserted street, with the dim light from a nearby lamppost casting long shadows on the wet pavement, the old man expressed concern that it was not a suitable place to sleep, especially in such weather conditions. He mustered his strength and helped me to my feet, taking most of my weight. Encouraging me, the old man led me toward a nearby bridge. Below the bridge, hidden from the rain and prying eyes, was a small makeshift shelter that served as the old man's temporary home. It was constructed from discarded materials and tarps, offering limited comfort but at least being dry and relatively warm. I stirred awake to the soft chirping of morning birds. My surroundings were unfamiliar, and a murky haze blurred my vision. My head pounded with the pain of last night's overindulgence. I winced, trying to figure out where I was. The dim light revealed a simple wooden shelter. With a groan, I pushed back the curtain and stepped outside, trying to get my bearings. Next to a gentle river, an elderly man sat calmly fishing. His posture was relaxed, and his hands steady despite the marks of time on his skin. The man greeted me with a knowing smile, commenting that it had taken me a while to wake up and that we had enjoyed ourselves a bit too much the previous night. Momentarily taken aback by his warmth, I stammered, admitting I could not remember how I ended up there. The man, David Smith, chuckled and explained that I had drunk too much and passed out on the pavement. He did not feel right leaving me there, so he brought me to his place. My cheeks burned with embarrassment, and I thanked David, hoping I had not caused any trouble. David leaned back, the sun reflecting off his aged eyes as he admitted I had been a bit loud, especially about my wife. Feeling the weight of the previous night's events, I apologized and explained I had been going through a rough patch. David's gaze softened, and he offered comforting words, saying he had been in a similar situation, feeling grief and loss. He shared some wisdom, stating that pain heals in its own time and that life goes on. David suggested we start with breakfast. Without hesitation, I asked for something to drink, mentioning my splitting headache. David chuckled, clearly expecting this, and soon the delightful aroma of simmering fish soup filled the air. I watched as David skillfully prepared the meal, and I could not help but comment on how heavenly it smelled. David winked, attributing it to an old family recipe perfect for mornings like these. As we enjoyed the fish soup under the open sky, David offered me some advice. I sighed, acknowledging the need to avoid letting alcohol control my life. David looked at me thoughtfully and shared his perspective, saying life is complicated and sometimes it is best to let go and move on, especially if someone has wronged you. I sensed a touch of sadness in his eyes, but did not press further. Instead, I thanked David for everything and mentioned I planned to head home. As I prepared to leave, I noticed some intricately carved wooden figures outside the shack. Impressed, I asked if David had made them. David's eyes sparkled as he confirmed he had, explaining they were a piece of his past he still held on to, and that woodworking brought him peace. I expressed my admiration, complimenting his talent. A smile formed on my face as I headed home, feeling a newfound sense of hope and a fresh start. Upon arriving home, I rushed to my computer, determined to reach out to local furniture stores. In the following days, I pitched my ideas with enthusiasm. 1 week later, filled with hope and determination, I returned to David S. Riverside shack. I expected to find him there, but only his backpack and jacket were near the dwelling, as if he had just stepped away. Confusion clouded my thoughts. Where could David be? I scanned the area, but the old man was nowhere in sight. Maybe he was out fishing or gathering wood, I thought, considering coming back the next day. As I started my journey back, a sharp stone found its way into my shoe. Each step grew increasingly uncomfortable, like an itch I could not scratch. I sighed in irritation and found a flat spot to sit down, eager to remove the intruder. As I lifted my shoe, my eyes were drawn to a lone figure standing dangerously close to the edge of the bridge in the distance. Panic gripped me. The scene looked eerily familiar. Without a second thought, I quickly put my shoe back on, not even bothering to tie the laces. I shouted desperately as I saw the person too close to the edge, fearing the worst. I hoped that with each rapid step, I could reach them in time, praying they would hear me and step back to safety. My feet pounded against the wooden planks of the bridge, and as I got closer, David S. figure became clearer. Initially relieved to find my friend, my smile vanished when I saw a coiled rope on the ground next to David, replacing my relief with gut-wrenching fear. David S. eyes, filled with pain and unshed tears, met mine, conveying a despair that words could not express. Without hesitation, I approached David with slow, deliberate movements, careful not to startle him. I reached out and put an arm securely around his shoulders. We stood there together, two souls on that bridge, sharing a moment of raw vulnerability. I tightened my grip, feeling David S.'s body tremble as his tears finally flowed. I pulled him into a tight embrace, the weight of the moment pressing down on us both. "It's okay," I murmured softly into his ear, my voice steady and reassuring. "I am here. We'll face this together." Sitting side by side on the bridge, David slowly began to share his story with me, unraveling the threads of his life step by step. He started by mentioning his service to the country and his job at a food processing plant, emphasizing that it may not have been glamorous, but it was honest work. David S.'s voice carried a weary tone as he recounted his journey, mentioning that he had secured a small apartment and had done everything he could to provide for his daughter, who meant the world to him. The weight of his memories was palpable as he rubbed his forehead. He continued, explaining that he lost his job when the plant downsized and missed a rent payment, leading to his eviction just a week later. David expressed how he had felt like he had nothing and no safety net. With pain etched in his eyes, David continued his story, describing how it had felt like every door was closing on him. He mentioned returning to his hometown with the hope of better luck, but faced difficulties due to his lack of a permanent address. Even job interviews ended in rejection because of his history of job loss. David looked down and fidgeted with his hands, conveying his anguish as he recounted how he was picked up for sleeping in places he shouldn't have been and fell seriously ill. He shared the scarcity of assistance and how he eventually found refuge in a friend's van, which was temporary. He mentioned stumbling upon the shack by the bridge, which had become his makeshift home. He let out a heavy sigh, expressing that the most painful part had been knowing his daughter was out there, thinking her father had abandoned her. David had been deeply despondent, feeling lost and without any hope for a brighter future. He had reached the bridge in a state of despair. My heart unexpectedly went out to David. This elderly man, with his gentle demeanor and genuine smile, stirred a protective instinct within me. As we walked back to the shack together, I spoke with genuine warmth, telling David that life had thrown some hard punches his way, but he was not alone in this battle anymore. David's eyes glistened with a mix of gratitude and astonishment, and my mind raced with possibilities. I had a vision, and David possessed the skills. So I proposed to David the idea of partnering with me to start a small furniture business, possibly beginning with crafting cradles. David looked taken aback by the unexpected proposal, but slowly, a glimmer of hope began to shine in his eyes, a light that had been missing for a long time. He asked hesitantly if I would trust him with that endeavor, to which I replied confidently that I would not have offered if I didn't believe in him. Over the following 2 weeks, the garage at my house echoed with the sounds of sawing, hammering, and laughter as we skillfully crafted exquisite wooden cradles. Each piece carried a story of hope and fresh beginnings. David became more than just a guest. In my home, we shared meals, stories, and dreams, becoming like family with each passing day. I loaded the beautifully crafted wooden cradles into my truck and headed to the local furniture stores. The cradles immediately caught the attention of store owners with their intricate designs and expert craftsmanship. When one store owner inquired about the craftsman, I proudly told them about my friend David, emphasizing his remarkable talent. It didn't take long for the cradles to gain popularity. Customers appreciated their uniqueness and the exceptional craftsmanship that went into each piece. Word spread, and soon more and more stores were reaching out to me and David with orders. One day, my smartphone displayed my wife Emily's name, filling me with anticipation and memories. In a brief conversation, Emily mentioned a delay and the possibility of an extended trip abroad. When I inquired about what was going on, there was a moment of silence followed by Emily clearing her throat. She then explained her urgent need for a loan. Hesitating due to our history and the abruptness of her request, I eventually conveyed my inability, saying, "Emily, I'm sorry, but I can do that right now." Her irritation was audible, and she sighed and responded sharply with, "Fine, forget it," before abruptly ending the call. David and my collaboration had taken off, and the demand for our finely crafted cradles was on the rise. Our small workspace was quickly becoming inadequate to handle the expanding business. As time passed, it became evident that we needed more space to accommodate our growing enterprise. I recalled a conversation with my friend Mark, who mentioned owning an old barn just outside of town. The barn was spacious, sturdy, and had been vacant for years. The transition to the barn went smoothly, and we hired a couple of eager local workers who were enthusiastic about learning the craft and becoming part of our growing success. I began to oversee operations more frequently from my home office. One evening, after a long day at the barn, David returned home to a pleasant surprise. Upon entering the house, he found me bustling around in the kitchen, which was an unusual sight. Typically, we would share a simple dinner with the rest of the crew back at the barn before calling it a day. However, this evening was different. The table was neatly set, and a delicious aroma filled the air. Seeing David standing there, somewhat perplexed, I motioned for him to take a seat at the table. "Please sit down, David. Dinner will be ready shortly," I said with a friendly smile. David, though confused, complied and took a seat, observing me as I moved about the kitchen with determination. Eventually, I joined him at the table, removing my apron, my face lit up with a wide grin, piquing David's curiosity. "I hope you won't be upset, David," I began, my eyes gleaming with an indescribable emotion. Before David could inquire further, the doorbell rang. I quickly answered it, and a moment later, a young girl hesitantly entered the room, her eyes filled with curiosity as she took in the unfamiliar surroundings. A woman followed closely behind. David's face shifted from pale to flushed with emotion as he recognized his daughter, Sarah. He rose from his seat, stumbling slightly as he rushed toward her. They embraced tightly, their emotions needing no words to convey their feelings. Behind them, I stood with the young girl Emma, smiling warmly at the heartwarming reunion. Sarah's voice quivered as she spoke amidst tears, expressing, "I thought I'd never see you again, Dad." David choked out with a trembling voice, "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I should have reached out." In a soft tone, Sarah said, "You should have, Dad, but it's okay now," as she stroked her father's hair. David nodded, clinging to his daughter as if she would vanish if he let go. He then looked at Emma and then at Sarah, slightly confused. Sarah laughed and informed him, "That's Emma." David gazed at his granddaughter, a lovely little girl he had only seen as an infant in pictures. I clapped my hands gently, drawing their attention, and informed them, "Well, everyone, dinner is ready. Please come to the table." As they gathered around the table, Sarah shared her struggles of the past month. Her obsession with finding her father had strained her relationship with her husband, ultimately leading to their separation. It had been a challenging journey, but at that moment, with her father by her side and new friends around, Sarah felt a sense of peace and closure she hadn't experienced in a long time. The warmth and laughter in my home multiplied with Sarah and Emma's presence. They added a delightful energy that I recognized as healing for me. I invited them to stay, knowing how much it would help my friend rebuild the lost bond. One evening, while engrossed in paperwork in my home office, the main door squeaked open. It wasn't T. David or Sarah, and I knew this because they always announced their return cheerfully. Glancing out, I saw Emily. She appeared weary, with slumped shoulders and dark circles under her eyes. She sighed, dropped her bags, and stretched. "That trip was quite an experience," she muttered. I watched her silently, a furrow forming on my forehead. She walked past me and slumped on the living room sofa, every move reflecting her exhaustion. Taking a deep breath, I approached her. I hesitated for a moment before sitting beside her, maintaining a bit of distance. Jessica glanced at me, trying to gauge my feelings. "Look, Ryan, I know things have been complicated, but I raised a hand, interrupting her. Did you have your phone turned off?" I asked, my voice low. Emily looked puzzled, but realization soon crossed her face, her eyes widening in shock. I swallowed hard, holding back my emotions. "I saw the pictures, Emily. I didn't need to see more than a few to understand." She moved closer, desperation in her eyes. "Ryan, please listen, it's not how it seems. We were just—" I stood up abruptly, cutting her off. "I wish I hadn't seen those photos, Emily, but now that I have, things can never be the same. I want to pretend everything's okay." Emily's voice trembled as she pleaded, "Ryan, just give me a chance to explain." I shook my head. "I think it is best if you leave. Please." Jessica's tone escalated, her frustration evident. "So this is it? You won't even hear me out? Fine, leave, but just remember, no one will ever stand by you the way I did. No one will love you like I did." The sound of the front door creaking open interrupted the tension in the room. David, having just entered, froze, realizing the gravity of the situation. He decided to give us some privacy and quietly retreated, gently closing the door behind him. Emily's demeanor shifted as her attempts to assert herself failed. She appeared genuinely remorseful. "Ryan, I'm truly sorry," she whispered. While I acknowledged her apology, I firmly requested that she leave. As Emily exited, a cheerful Emma was playing on the lawn. She spotted me and rushed over, hugging my legs tightly. The innocent embrace emphasized the contrast between the past and a potential future. Emily watched, taking in the scene. A pang of realization struck her. Perhaps someone else would indeed offer me the love and respect I deserved, something she had been unable to provide. What would you have done in my shoes? Could you find it in your heart to forgive, or would the pain be too great to bear? Share your thoughts and let me know how you would have navigated this tumultuous path. Your insights might just help someone else facing a similar crossroads.